A very good morning to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice on Monday morning, the start of a new week. We put the weekend behind us, forget about the game against Arsenal if we can, and move on. Because over the course of December, we've got 6 games in total, but 5 of which, the last one is going to be in December, is going to be against Liverpool. But the other 5 are games that everybody is suggesting are winnable games. And we start those supposed winnable games against Leicester City on Tuesday evening. Um, Now, that game is going to be quite interesting for both teams because both teams suffered quite big defeats at the weekend at the hands of Arsenal and Brentford, respectively. Now, look, if you're new to the channel, first time watching the West Ham Voice, if you enjoy the content at the end of this video, please do become a subscriber. And also, please do hit the like button because it helps to elevate the channel if you do that. So anyway, we all know the calamity that we had to endure on Saturday when Arsenal cruised to a 5-2 win at our ground. But like I said, Leicester were also suffered quite a heavy defeat, and they were away to Brentford, and they lost 4-1. So the one thing that both teams are not going to want to do on Tuesday night is to lose another match. Now, Leicester currently sits 16th place, 2 places above the relegation zone, and only a point separates them and 2 of the bottom 3 clubs at this moment in time. Whilst West Ham, despite us being 5 points clear of Leicester, we only sit 2 places above them. Now, in their last 5 games, Leicester have lost 4, and they picked up just 1 solitary point when they drew against Ipswich at the start of November. In comparison, West Ham in the last 5 games have won 2, lost 2, and drawn 1. Now, aside from Wolves, Leicester have conceded the most goals in the Premier League so far this season, 27 in 13 games. Mind you, we're not much better, as we've got the joint 3rd worst record for conceded goals in the Premier League with 24. And when it comes to goals scored, we've only got 1 more than Leicester have so far. So in a way, this kind of looks like the game on Tuesday night looks like it could be a game where there's going to be goals scored, and it could end up being maybe a high-scoring draw. But travelling fans will want to see much more than from against a struggling Leicester team. Well, I call them struggling, but I've just quoted the stats that suggest that we're not doing much better ourselves. Now, Leicester will have the advantage of being under the management of Ruud van Nistelrooy, who replaced Steve Cooper. And this will be his first game in charge of the East Midlands club. Now, it could be that there'll be that bounce back ability or whatever you used to call it. Leicester fans might be expecting something a bit positive with a response to Van Nistelrooy taking over. So this is not going to be an easy game for us at all. Now, what will Van Nistelrooy bring to this team? Well, with his attacking background during his playing career and his stint at managing PSV in that short stint with Man United, you can expect a Leicester team that's going to go all out attacking. With Leicester having such a poor defence, Van Nistelrooy might adopt the old Sir Alex Ferguson mantra of if your opposition scores 1, we score 2. If the opposition scores 2, we score 3. And with our defence also being quite shaky at most times, like I said, this could be a high-scoring game. Now, when at PSV, Van Nistelrooy adopted an attacking possession-based approach, primarily using a 4-3-3 formation. So there's every chance that he will set his team up to really have a go at West Ham on home turf on Tuesday night. And with our frailties, I just can't really see us keeping a clean sheet. I'd love to think that we can put in a similar kind of performance that we did against Newcastle when we were away a couple of weeks last week. But I don't, ironically, even though we kept a clean sheet against them, I'm not so sure we're going to do the same against Leicester on Tuesday night. Now, Leicester, they've got a number of injuries with midfielder Harry Winks being out with a groin injury, probably not back maybe for another week or so. They've got other injuries to contend with as well as primarily in defense. Ricardo Pereira has got a long-term muscle injury. Plus, defender Caleb Okoli is a 50-50 after suffering a knock, which saw him being subbed at the weekend against Brentford. In addition, one of their top goal scorers with 4 goals this season, Facundo Buonanotte, is suspended for the game against West Ham. He would be a big loss for them. And if we don't already know, despite having one of their top goal scorers being out suspended, they do have threats up front. And of course, Captain Jamie Vardy, who also has 4 goals this season, is always a threat against any team in the Premier League. And of course, they've got Jordan Ayew, who's got 3 goals in the Premier League as well this season. But it is their defence that West Ham can especially can get at, especially with James Justice and Wout Faes in partnership not really working that well. And there's a problem for Van Nistelrooy to deal with the defence before anything else. Now, he may reintroduce Connor Cody into the starting lineup to try and tighten things up there. But Cody's only made 2 appearances, so he might be a little bit rusty for Leicester. Now, if Okoli is injured, it's considered that Yannick Vestergaard is likely to be his replacement. So you could see a completely different defence out on Tuesday night if Van Nistelrooy decides that he wants to change things around. He's got a huge job on his hand, Van Nistelrooy. But he'll be relishing the opportunity to try and get a first game, first win under his belt at home on home turf. And given that we're a bit fragile as well, maybe we'll see Van Nistelrooy really pushing it out to try and get a real attacking prowess against West Ham, try and break us down. Now, look, without disrespecting Leicester in any way, West Ham have got a better squad. And by rights, we should be fancying our chances on getting a win on Tuesday night. It's the first of 5 games where Lopetegui is likely to be judged with much more scrutiny than the last 2 games against Newcastle and Arsenal. And a viewer pointed out that despite the scoreline against Arsenal on Saturday, if you had offered West Ham 3 points plus a -1 goal difference in those 2 games, you would have taken it. The 2-0 win over Newcastle and the 5-2 defeat to Arsenal meant that after those 2 games, our goal difference has suffered by just 1 goal. But we have 3 points. Scant consolation? Well, I guess we've got to look for some consolation in some way. But what we know is that despite all our problems, we've got one player that's back, and that, of course, is Mohammed Kudus after completing his 5-game ban. Now, Lopetegui will be back on the touchline as well after serving his 1-match ban as well. But will Kudus be in the starting lineup? It's going to be interesting to see what Lopetegui decides. I dare say, I think he will come into the straight back into the team, but at whose expense? And it seems almost glaringly obvious that it's likely to be Crescencio Summerville, who was subbed at half-time against Arsenal. It's likely to be the player that's going to make way. Now, despite Summerville looking to be one of our liveliest players over the last few games, I think he's the one that's going to pay the price of Lopetegui wanting to see to bring Kudus back in. Look, Kudus is a very good player, but I think we can get both players in. But it was Summerville who suffered again at the weekend when Lopetegui decided to bring Edson Alvarez on in order to damage for damage limitations. It was 5-2 already, and some viewers in the show I did on Sunday night suggested that, well, of course Edson Alvarez had to come in to limit any further goals. Why not do that in the first place if you were that worried? But if Kudus does replace Summerville, it will again mean quite possibly that Kudus is going to be played out on the left-hand side. Now, having played really well against Newcastle, but quite anonymously against Arsenal, this will be the game for me, not to drop Summerville, but to drop Mikel Antonio. Replace him with Kudus, either up front or Bowen up front, and put one of those two players out on the right. If you want to put Kudus up front, keep Bowen on the right, or you could put Bowen up front and keep Bowen out on the right. Whichever way, you could do one of those two things and keep Summerville in the starting lineup. Now, I think with the weakness, with the weak defence that Leicester have, this is a game where we should ourselves, it's quite possible, as I said, that Van Nistelrooy is probably going to go for an all-out attack. But this is the sort of game that ourselves, we should go for an all-out attack as well. Because I can see us really hurting them if we play a direct attack-minded game. And if we've got Summerville, Kudus and Bowen all in the starting lineup, we could really hurt their defence. But will Lopetegui do this? I don't know. And by the way, if you're interested in the chance to win a signed and special lead-framed Jared Bowen shirt, go to footballprizes.co.uk for details on how to enter, plus all terms and conditions. And you also have the chance to win 15 other instant West Ham prizes. The competition ends at 7:30 p.m. on Friday, the 6th of December. And good luck with that if you decide to enter. So, who is going to start in this lineup on Tuesday? Well, for me, if it were me, I've just suggested that maybe bringing Antonio off, putting him on the bench, letting him come on later in the game if need be. But there's a question mark over who might be in goal. Fabianski, was he at fault for some of the goals? We blamed Areola quite easily for some of the defeats that we've had over the past throughout this season. Is it time to maybe bring Areola back into the fold? I don't know. I don't think Lopetegui would do that. So probably you'll see Fabianski keeping his place. I think the back four will stay the same. Wan-Bissaka, who is looking better and better, even going further forward. Todibo, Kilman, who had a bit of a torrid time against Arsenal at the weekend, but I keep him, and Emerson. And then the interesting thing is what's going to happen in midfield. Now, I've said, I don't think this is a game where we really need to have a defensive-minded midfielder. Maybe that's what we needed against Arsenal at the weekend, but I don't think this is the game to now start tinkering with holding midfielders. I think we should actually keep the three that started the game on Saturday and also played against Newcastle, and that's Souček, Soler, and Paqueta. And I'll explain about Soler in a minute. And then further up front, the change I've mentioned is having Antonio on the bench and playing. I would put Bowen on the right, in the middle, put Kudus out on the right, leave Summerville on the left. But we kind of know that, I've already mentioned, that the fall guy is going to be Summerville. And probably what Lopetegui will do is he'll play Kudus out on the left, leave Antonio up front, and play Bowen on the right. Even that side, to be honest with you, should be enough to get a result against Leicester on Tuesday night. Now, I mentioned Soler and keeping him in the team because that slide rule pass that cut open the Arsenal defence on Saturday was superb. We haven't seen that being done quite often this season. We know we've got players available that can do that. Paqueta can do that. Bowen can do that and so on. But to see Soler doing it means that he's settling into this side. And if I'm going to go back to the team that I'd like to see, if Soler was given that opportunity to play that central attacking midfield role again, you've got the likes of Summerville, Kudus, and Bowen running onto those through balls. I think we could actually create quite a lot of damage against Leicester on Tuesday night. But let's see what will happen. We need a game that not only to get the right result, but we need a morale boosting game. We need another game a bit like the Newcastle game where we can demonstrate how good we can be. And this is the start of these next 5 games. I'm excluding the Liverpool one at the end of December. But the next 5 games against Leicester, Wolves, these are not going to be easy games. Leicester, Wolves, Bournemouth, Southampton. There is another one, and the game slips my mind at the moment. But the games that we've got coming up, they are not going to be easy games by any stretch of the imagination. You know, it's Brighton. But these other teams are playing well, or they're fighting for survival in the Premier League. Southampton are. That won't be easy. Leicester are fighting for survival. And then the other 3 teams, Bournemouth and Brighton, etc., are actually looking quite good at the moment. So they're a massive, massive test. But these are the ones that we can determine whether Julen Lopetegui is the right man to continue at West Ham. I'm going to be honest with you, and I hate being doom and gloomish, but my gut tells me now that probably he's not the right man. But let him prove us all wrong. Let him go out there and demonstrate that he can put the right team out with the right tactics and get a good display of football with the right results. It's going to be interesting. Join me again for the West Ham Weekly on Monday nights. I'll do a roundup of the week's news, and then I'll be at Leicester. So look out for videos that I will do when I'm out there as well. Thank you all for joining, and thank you all for watching and listening. Like I said, if you've yet to become a subscriber, please do so, but do also hit that like button as well. And I'll see you all very soon.